And as we continue to ponder mysteries of space and time, it is my great pleasure to have what really is a historic thing. As I think, Joe Green from PSFC earlier correctly identified, has been a really under-discussed topic, a place that is really special in a lot of ways you're about to learn about, is also alongside groups like MAPS and USONA, who are pursuing the FDA pathway to bring psychedelic medicine to America. Our friends, very far west of the Mississippi, up in the Pacific Northwest, have taken matters into their own hands, and for the last few years have designed this amazing and very innovative and unique way of enabling people to have psilocybin experiences. And so it is my really great privilege and honor and pleasure to welcome to the stage Tom Eckert from the state of Oregon, here live in New York City, who is going to tell you the story of Measure 109, to which he and his late wife Cherie are personally responsible. So thank you again, Tom, for joining us. And Tom, Julie is fashionably late. Julie likes to hide in the green room, and then no one can find her, and then I do her job for her. My phone died. No, this is yours. So I introduced one, I got to introduce Tom, and now Julie is going to introduce Angela.
I was waiting so that I could introduce the next two people who are going to talk about Oregon Measure 109, a regulated model for psilocybin experiences. They are Thomas Eckert, therapist and program director and activist, and the chair of the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board, and Angela Allbee, an MPA, who is government relations and public administration manager, Oregon Psilocybin Specialist Services Section. I screwed up. Kevin, you should have done it. Angela, Thomas, please tell us about Measure 109.
Sure. Well, hello, New York. Been quite a trek to find myself here at Horizons after all these years. Feeling grateful to be here, grateful to provide this dispatch from the great Pacific Northwest. It's hard to believe that only a year has passed since we sailed to a historic election night victory with the passage of Oregon's Measure 109, which sets the stage for the nation's first statewide psilocybin services program. And of course, I won't forget the look on my late wife Cherie's eyes as those closing poll numbers first flashed across the screen, the culmination of our 5-year effort together. And it's even harder to believe that just a month and a half later, my beloved wife passed away. The movement lost a pioneering hero in Cherie Eckert. And since Cherie's passing, I've learned to forge on. We all have, in her honor. And I now find myself chairing the governor-appointed Psilocybin Advisory Board. I'm honored to work with esteemed colleagues and the board and the Oregon Health Authority, including Angie Allbee, who you'll hear from shortly, as we work hard to develop rules and regulations for Oregon's statewide program, which is set to roll out in 2023. So the origin story of the Oregon campaign takes us back to 2015, well before any other psychedelic policy reform movements had popped up around the country. That's when Cherie and I began writing the text of the initiative and launched the campaign that would eventually become Measure 109. Honestly, nobody thought that was possible back then, perhaps including us, which is why we always explicitly aimed for 2020, even though 2020 seemed like a pretty distant horizon. We gave ourselves a long runway because we wanted to do things right. We wanted to, did somebody sound? Hello, check, check. Oh, okay. Is this mic working? Any mic working?
Am I disrupting you? No.
Check, check. Check, check. Okay, Thank you, sir. Check, check. Hello? Hello, hello. Check, check. Sure. Check, check.
1 1 2 2 2 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2.
Something's going on with your slide.
One two 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 two.
Check, check.
Funny thing about this room is that at the time we were talking this morning when Abraham Lincoln and Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass spoke here, they did not have amplified sound at that time. And that is one of the reasons for the unique design of the room and why it is so wide and why everyone is so close to the stage instead of a long rectangular theater. It's because it's actually designed for speaking without amplification from a time where such things were possible. So I'm going to propose a earth-based, deeply human, non-technical solution to this problem. And we're just going to talk and see how it goes and ask people to project a little bit and kind of channel our, honest Abe and Frederick Douglass here and see if you guys can still enjoy. People willing to give it a shot?
I can do this.
Go for it.
All right, tune up the voice, right? So yeah, as I was saying, we gave ourselves a really long runway because we wanted to do things right. We wanted to let the science develop, let public opinion evolve, let coalitions coalesce over time. And all of that eventually happened, of course. But thinking back to the very beginning, I remember reading an article by Michael Pollan in the New Yorker called The Trip Treatment, which came out well before his best-selling book. You may remember it. Well, I was a lifelong psychedelic enthusiast, and the article still was a revelation to me. As a psychotherapist, I felt like I wanted to focus my professional attention on psychedelics, and clearly I wasn't the only one feeling that way. But of course, there was no available specialty. There was no track, no way to legally practice outside the research itself. We were all blocked by the law, as had been the case for my entire life. Now, I knew Cherie had also read the Pollan article. I shared how I was feeling. She was feeling much the same way, so we talked. And the more we talked, the more convicted we became about wanting to help end this prohibition on psychedelic therapy and healing. And I do remember the moment that the ballot initiative concept came to my mind. It felt a little bit like lightning in a bottle, I would say. It was an odd feeling to realize, having kind of Googled things afterwards, that there wasn't a single public word about anything like that anywhere in the world. So I had to sit with that, as did Cherie, and we didn't want to move forward lightly. We didn't want to jeopardize the movement in any way. We understood the history, how fragile it all seemed. So we sat with it for about a week, feeling undecided, a little anxious, to be honest. Finally, we realized there's really just one thing left to do. Consult the mushroom. So we packed up the car, plucked some golden teachers from our little terrarium in the closet, and headed out camping, and figuring just a mushroom trip might clarify our decision. And so it was that way that a mushroom journey on a beautiful evening surrounded by the majesty of Mother Nature, we officially sparked the nation's first psychedelic campaign. And our setting couldn't have been better. An old growth forest of firs and hemlocks at the foot of Mount Rainier in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And as that ancient forest went dark, the golden teachers came alive. And in the later stages of a powerful trip, we found ourselves across a campfire, and it was somewhere in that starry soup of shared consciousness that our minds, well, conceived. I remember having been quiet for a time. My mind had stretched into a space that I felt like was 1,000 years wide, sensed a deep future, as if historians from some distant day were peeking back into a old time, which seemed eerily possible in that altered state. I wondered what they saw. I mean, what will scholars of a truly advanced society, one that survives 1,000 years into the future, think about our civilization? What would they see? And my sense was they weren't too focused on our politics or our technologies or anything like that. I sensed they were focused on our consciousness, our lost connection with our inner dimensions, inner sanity. It was clear to me in that moment that consciousness would define our collective future. And perhaps nothing would appear vexing to these future scholars as criminalizing safe and effective means to enhance and explore consciousness, namely psychedelics. It was then that Shree's voice pierced the quiet. I'm pregnant, he said. Curious thing to say, especially since we were unable to have kids together. I looked at her inquisitively. This idea, this campaign, this vision will be our baby, like you said, with flames reflecting in her eyes. We'll raise it like a child. We'll care for it until it grows strong. And suddenly I knew just right then and there that we would do just that, and that we'd see it all the way through. And that we did. And the metaphor held throughout. It's the way we talked about the campaign. It's the way I still think about it today. Except now it's truly a village raising the baby, sharing the responsibility of bringing this idea into the world. And as I share it with all of you, I kind of feel like I'm dropping the baby off at college. Kind of entrusting all of you to see and feel this potential, to help it grow into itself, into the world. I'm humbled and proud. I'm thinking of Shree as she truly believed that the world was ready to one day open up to the Oregon model of psychedelic care. The heart of the Oregon model is found in the inspirations that gave rise to it. It's a particular approach, philosophically founded. Of course, as therapists, we wanted to harness the power of psilocybin for healing and addressing the mental health crisis here in Oregon. We also wanted to end the 50-year prohibition on psychedelics, which we did. But just as importantly, we wanted to think deeply about how we integrate psychedelics like psilocybin back into the culture. We wanted to put psilocybin therapy and wellness on its own foundation, give it its own licensing framework, and a truly integrated platform, one capable of addressing a spectrum of concerns, from prevention and wellness to therapy and medicine. We wanted to advance a model tailored to the unique quality of the psilocybin modality and all it entails, which, as you guys know, is a lot. So the Oregon model represents a shift from a more prescriptive, medicalized approach toward a more holistic, therapeutic, humanistic model, a model that fully orients our inner resources, to our inner resources, our innate capacity to grow and to mature and transcend. It's a model that centers the healing energies within us while connecting us to something greater than ourselves. Now, out on the campaign trail, Shree and I quickly found that the culture was ready for that kind of message because it's empowering and it's true, and it speaks equally to everyone. And part of our understanding as a campaign and as a statewide program now in development is that psilocybin is not just a pharma drug. It's not a new antidepressant to be brought to market. Instead, we see it more through the lens of what I think it really is: an experiential, existential, psycho-spiritual medicine, and most essentially, a real, vulnerable human experience, unique to the individual. After all, this is the mushroom. It's been around forever. As you all know, indigenous cultures have used, in different parts of the world, used psilocybin and other plant medicines in ceremonial contexts for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And to boot, in the United States, we've been studying psilocybin since the 50s. So this is not some new drug. It's actually part of a very expansive collective heritage. So for lots of reasons, we didn't want to hand this over to a strictly medicalized, prescription-based, pharma-driven psychiatric model. And with all due respect, and really so much due, to the heroic scientists that essentially rebirthed the psychedelic movement in the 21st century, the FDA approval process cannot be the sole source of progress, nor can it exclusively define this container. Access to psychedelic plant medicines cannot be restricted to a medical complex. Psilocybin and the deeply human experience it entails and activates will not be dominated by pharmaceutical companies. So the forward is the ballot initiative, which Oregon proved by carving out new space for therapeutic and wellness services, a model that incorporates careful safety, practice, and ethical standards with a backbone of specific training and accountability, while opening doors of access to anyone who might safely benefit without needing a prescription or a diagnosis. So I think Oregon's showing what's possible here, right? The measure is an example of creative legislation, and that we really use legal language to carve out a new space in our culture. And I hope this cultural space expands and proliferates and helps to create a new narrative around mental health care nationally. We are so proud of Oregonians who came out and forced to support this measure. All 1.3 million of them who voted yes for psilocybin therapy, carrying Measure 109 to a decisive and historic victory with a commanding 56% of the vote, something that would have seemed unthinkable just a few short years ago. So just to finish up, I'd like to mention another project that is really dear to my heart. As you've now gathered, Cherie was the co-creator of Measure 109, and she had a very clear vision for its implementation. In fact, she communicated a clearly worded wish to develop an institution, and I'll quote her, guided by on-the-ground community leaders, would allocate resources to support facilitator training, community education, and service delivery for often underserved populations in Oregon. So in honor of Cherie's legacy and her vision, we launched the Cherie Eckert Foundation to support equitable access to psychedelic education and services via scholarships and subsidies. So please do get in touch with me if you'd like to learn more about that mission. And you can check out cherieeckert.org. And that, thank you. And with that, I will make way for Angie Allbee, who is from the Oregon Health Authority and is going to, she's a big inspiration to me and a wonderful collaborator. Things are going so well in that environment. Angie is going to tell you a bit more about the current state of the program in terms of its development and its implementation and all the hard work we've been doing to make the Oregon program the very best it can be. So thank you all for taking the time to listen. Thank you for supporting Oregon over the years. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, New York. How are you? All right. I have a confession to make. I am a technology disruptor. I don't know if you've heard of us, but shut technology down. I'm so sorry to our technology friends. I made a bad joke earlier that I'm going to shut it down by accident, and so I take full responsibility. I have a presentation today to keep me on track because I can talk forever about Measure 109 and the exciting work of implementing the Oregon Psilocybin Services Act. But I'll start off first by saying it's just such an honor to be here. Again, for the record, my name is Allbee, and I am the section manager of the newly created Oregon Psilocybin Services section at the Oregon Health Authority Public Health Division Center for Health Protection. I'm just going to speak off the cuff right now, if that's okay. So next up, the State Health Improvement Plan. This is a plan that really is like that we tie our work to within the agency and the Public Health Division. In early 2019, the partnership, which is some really great collaborative work, lots of people involved, over 100 community organizations, lots of members of the public, got together and identified these 5 priorities in order to be able to move forward with our goals. And I just want to read them out really quickly. Institutional bias, adverse trauma, toxic stress, economic drivers of health, equitable access to preventative healthcare, and behavioral health. So why am I telling you this? I want you to know where this wonderful body of work is housed and the lens at which we're approaching the work and moving the work forward. I'll start by also introducing the section that we're creating right now. This is divided up into 3 programs: policy and engagement, a compliance program, and a licensing program. Policy and engagement is really important. We've got to drive forward those goals of eliminating health inequities. We've got to continue working towards our state health improvement plan, and the only way to do that is to connect with partners. All right, so I'm going to get into a little more nuts and bolts about the measure and try to do that quickly so I can talk about some of the achievements we've made and also just some engagement opportunities that we're opening up to the world. First off, Measure 109 creates an Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board. This is a governor-appointed board, and members serve 4-year terms. The Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board is charged with a few tasks, big tasks. The first is to review all the available scientific, medical, other research on psilocybin and its impact on mental health, and to review that literature and bring recommendations forward to OHA. Also, in addition to that, is to make recommendations to OHA so that we can have a framework to really look at our rules and regulations, draft rules, and then go through the rulemaking process and build the program. Next up is developing long-term strategic planning. That's really important for sustainability of the program and looking into the future. And finally, to monitor and study federal laws. Of course, we're watching what happens across the nation, hoping that we can continue working with our federal partners and also that we gain the trust we need to be able to do our work without any interruption. The current, I forgot, I'm not going to go back, but current subcommittees include equity, training, research, products, and licensing. So, Measure 109, what is it, what isn't it? Measure 109 creates a license and regulatory framework for the provision of psilocybin services and the production of psilocybin. This work does not create a consumer market. So unlike cannabis, you can't go to a dispensary, purchase the psilocybin products, take it home. What this is really that setting up regulatory framework for a different kind of model. It does not allow for import-export of psilocybin, and it does not allow licensees to engage with the unregulated market. I'm going to roll through this really fast, but the 4 licensure types. A manufacturer license. And this is a person or an entity that cultivates, processes, packages, delivers, sells psilocybin to licensed service centers. I left a bunch of details in this presentation, so you can all refer to that later. Testing lab licenses. All products must be tested by a testing lab that has been accredited by the Oregon Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program. In addition to that, they will test products based on what the advisory board recommends and also what we put into rule. We have facilitators. Facilitators must go through an OHA-approved training program prior to applying for licensure. And this is the license type that actually is present with a client who is going for an administration session at a licensed service center and is present with them and is there with them through their journey. Service centers, these are licensees. This is the premise at which psilocybin administration sessions take place. And we are defining all of the details of that in rulemaking over 2 parts of next year in February and then again in September. So all of those details, will be forthcoming. I know it's very difficult because this presentation actually creates more questions. So it doesn't quite address all of those details. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk briefly about psilocybin services. In Measure 109, there's the preparation session, an administration session, and an optional integration session. We're working right now with our advisory board partners on the recommendations that will create the regulatory framework. And we'll also take a look at the preparation session, client intake, informed consent, client waivers, making sure the facilitator and the clients are well matched, etc. And then the administration session is where psilocybin is administered at a licensed service center to a client. We have to do product tracking. I won't get into it too much, but part of my work is making sure that at the agency we go through all the appropriate contracting and procurement processes to make sure that we're setting up systems, not just to track product, but also to track our licensees and to create a compliance case management system. So that's an incredible body of work that we're working on right now. There are local government issues that I just want to highlight. Local governments have the ability to adopt ordinances that can prohibit licensed manufacturers and service centers from actually working within their jurisdiction. We hope that's not the case, but there is this possibility in Measure 109. There's also the ability to set time, place, and manner restrictions. You can't see it fully, but applicants for service center licenses and manufacturer licenses have to have a land use compatibility agreement with their local government jurisdiction that they submit to the agency. We do need to set license and application fees, so the cost of administering all of this work has to be covered by the licensure fees that are set in rule. It's really important that as we look forward, we try to work towards making not just the licensure fee cost effective and affordable, but also to ensure that people can access services and those aren't too costly. So we have a lot of work to do to look at equitable access and to make sure that people can participate in the psilocybin market, the regulated psilocybin market, unlike what has happened over time with cannabis. Specifically those communities that were most impacted by the war on drugs. So we're really doing a lot of outreach. And because we're not a business agency, we're unable to really actually, get grant money available to help people do startup work for their businesses. But we can connect people to resources, and so that's what we're trying to do right now. Oh, I should know that. Taxes. We do, the licensed service centers will collect a 15% tax payable to the Oregon Department of Revenue for every sale to a client. There are a couple of timelines that I want to just make sure you know about. The first is that we are in the development period right now. So from January of this year until December 31st of next year, we're in the development period. The Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board has to make all of their recommendations to OHA by June 30th of next year, so that we can go through rulemaking and get all of the work set up. We have to have all rules adopted by December 31st of next year, and we begin receiving applications for licensure on January 2nd of 2023, which is really exciting to think about. All right, so here's some accomplishments that I just want to highlight. I hope all of you have already gone to our website. If you haven't, please do visit that. Please join our distribution lists. Please stay tuned. But we do have a scientific literature review that is posted. The advisory board has done a lot of tremendous work on. It's also translated into Spanish, and that was the directive of Measure 109. We refreshed our website so that people got this information as we fill out this work. We still have lots of information that we're not able to share yet because we're building over, but that will come. We've scheduled public listening sessions for December, the 13th through the 15th. We'll have a Spanish interpreter available, and we'll be there to listen to and hear from the public. We want to know what people are thinking and thoughts that people have, especially those that have experience in this space. We really want to listen to their voices and better understand how we should set this up properly. We have a community interest survey that we're going to be administering in early January. It's a lot of hard work, but it's exciting because this is going to give us insight to how many licensees we'll have, how many training programs want to have their training programs approved by OHA, how many people want to access services, and what languages they speak or what accessibility needs do they have. Because we need to prepare our resources and make sure that we're as inclusive as possible in responding to our community. Next, and that survey will be translated into the top 5 languages that is spoken in Oregon, which includes Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, Simple Chinese Mandarin, and Somali. We'll have making advisory committees in February and September of next year. We've got some key dates. I just put this in the presentation for all of you to refer to at some time in the future. We have lots of partners we coordinate with, and I just wanted to give a nod to Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes. We have 7 our state agents and their advisory boards, councils, and commissions to work through the government-to-government relationship that our tribal partners have put into place. So we honor that. We've reached out to them and are working with them currently, and so we'll see how much they want to engage. We're very proud of that work. Also, there's engagement opportunities. I think I have time to walk through those a little bit. I'm trying to go quickly so I don't run out of time. Okay. We have open seats for the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board every 4 years. There's specified positions in Measure 109, but that is something, that is an engagement opportunity. You can enroll making advisory committees in February or September of next year going forward. There's a public comment period in response to our draft rules. Those will take place in April and November of next year. We'll have public listening sessions. Of course, we have those scheduled for December, and we'll have some more in July of next year. We have a community interest survey. You can all tune in to all of our public meetings, the advisory board meetings, and all of the 5 subcommittees as they discuss really important details about what their recommendations will be to the agency. You can sign up for a distribution list, please do so. It's really important that we move this work together, work forward together, and really, if you want to stay tuned in what's going on in Oregon, we'd love to make sure that you're a part of that distribution list. We also have job recruitment. I really want to recruit a team of people that are committed to making this successful rollout and making sure that psilocybin services are a sustainable option in Oregon. So that's something that I'm very committed to. I'm running out of breath, and I don't know if it's the pain pose or just that I'm talking too much. I just want to say thank you again. This is an incredible honor to be here and share what's happening in Oregon. Would love to hear from you all. Thank you for being here, thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for this conference. Our website is posted here, and I think Tom and I now have some time to answer questions. So thank you so much.
Thanks for bearing with us while we have some technical difficulties. If people do want to ask questions, you're maybe going to have to project a little bit and hopefully do it. And maybe one of us will repeat the question so you can hear
here. But thank you, Tom and Andy, for the talk. We're very excited for you.
While they're wrangling the questioners, I guess, I know that David Bronner has been instrumental in helping you guys get things off the ground, and I've heard the hooting and hollering. So I know you mentioned, but I guess, one of my questions is, what do you still need?
Yeah, that's a big one. Big one. Well, there's a whole infrastructure side to this question. I'll shout as best I can. That's what I can do.
So we have no amplification for our voices. We can only project. And the question is, what is still needed?
Yeah, I think there's infrastructure that needs to be built. The work and development on the legal container creates this beautiful space, but it's really community that fills that space, and it's infrastructure. It's community leaders that need help to create training programs, to create service centers, to create equitable access through various programs like the Sharia Eckert Foundation and others. Yeah, I think it takes some thought. I mean, there's like mentorship programs. There's how do we accredit practicum sites? We need an association model. There's lots of projects that I think will help Oregon really pump. And the Oregon Health Authority, that's not their bandwidth. So that's up to the community, and it's up to the donor space to help things along in the nonprofit sector. And it's, just really motivated people to do good work. And I think there's so many people out there, and I know this firsthand, especially at this conference, just networking, just so much energy around ensuring that Oregon succeeds. And so just creating a central way to bring funds in, to bring expertise in, to create that portfolio of projects, and give it a platform to really succeed. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, one of the challenges that the agency faces.
Yes. All right, well, we've got at least one. Do you want to come say what you want to say, Andy?
Yeah. Hello. All right. We have sound. So I was just adding to, Tom, what he had mentioned about what does Oregon need. We need the world to start unraveling the stigma against psilocybin. We need to shift the conversation from a drug policy conversation to a health and wellness conversation. This model is so incredible, but it's not covered by insurance. So how do we ensure that equitable access is a possibility? How do we ensure that communities who have been overlooked for hundreds of years and don't have access to capital or resources can take part in these services? And how do we ensure that people have access and if they want it? So I think that those are kind of the challenges that I sit with at night, and I know Tom is, and many members of the advisory board, and we have incredible partners in Oregon doing amazing work, and also across the nation. So I think that those are the challenges that I just want to bring up today as we're having that conversation.
Thank you very much. We've got time for a question or two. We'll see how we do.
Hi, guys. Thank you for all the work you guys are currently doing and all achieving everything. So I am a. All right, cool.
Just shout, just shout.
So I administer ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. I also. Cool. All right. What research indicates that integration sessions would be optional? On the slideshow, it said that they were optional.
Well, the quick answer to optional is you can't make someone come back after they've done a psilocybin session. So that's all that really means is you can't, they may not come back. But we want a robust integration support system. And there is, the facilitators have to be trained intensively in integration. That's a huge, it's all part of the sequence of the work. And so, yeah, that's absolutely just in alignment with what all of you guys probably know, is just the sequence of sessions and how that, in just kind of broad strokes, optimally work. But even beyond the regulated frame where we include integration in the training and the offerings, we also want to develop the community of integration providers. And integration is an interesting word, right? Because it's not really a clinical word. It can mean so many different things. So when you move out of the regulated frame, can the psychedelic experience be an opening into a big support net of integration potentials, right? And can the Oregon program facilitate that and facilitate that networking so Oregon itself is kind of an ongoing integration support network? That's my ideal there, yeah.
And I just want to add to that, thank you for that question. We are working with our professional licensing boards in Oregon to take a look at how do we partner. Where does one scope of practice end and ours begin? What do all of those details look like? And Measure 109 specifies that integration sessions are optional, but I think that's where an incredible amount of work with partnerships can really develop and do some interesting work. So thank you.
Okay, we've got time for one or two more concise questions. Adolescents. Any plans for offering the services to adolescents, and if so, how long would that take to get up and running?
What country are we in? The word adolescent is statutorily has a lot of questions that are raised. What is an adolescent defined as? And I think that it's going to take time for us to build this program and to build trust, make sure it's successful. And Measure 109 does specify adults 21 years of age or older. So it is not a program for adolescents, but I do think that over time, maybe when I'm still alive and I'm retired and looking at all the wonderful work everyone else is doing, maybe that'll be a part of the conversation.
And just to add to that, on all these kind of issues, we hope that this is an evolving conversation. So we're creating a platform for dialogue to continue and best practices to continue to evolve. And so, these are good questions that we're going to continue to look at, that we're all going to look at as a community, and we'll stay in line with what makes sense.
Another question, please. Hi.
I was wondering, as I'm sure you guys know, homelessness is a huge public health issue in Oregon, and if Oregon Health Authority has plans to work directly with free, low-cost, low-barrier clinics, or often the ones who provide healthcare currently to non-registered people, and if you were going to include that in the psilocybin.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for coming from Eugene, Oregon to be here. The question was, is the Oregon Health Authority planning on working with houseless populations? We have a huge number of houseless communities across the state, and if we're looking at working with any of those, clinics or other partners, the answer is somewhat complex. Yes, if someone wants to be a licensee and they meet the criteria, our program will work with them. However, we work with lots of partners on engagement opportunities, and so we will be engaging with many partners, some of which are responsible for working with houseless community members. We really want to make sure we're, reaching everyone. And I would also say that within the agency, the public health division, the behavioral health division, there's a lot of work being done with houseless communities and how we address that gap and how we do that outreach. So it is happening, but I think the first and foremost, we have to develop the program, get it standing up, and really then learn who's interested and how we engage with them. Thank you.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to hear from Kevin Balkdick again.
I just want to know, are there other states that are poised to follow suit when it comes to working with anybody else in other states?
Good question. Who's following Oregon?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of interest, and I'm open to those conversations. It's been a little hard to have bandwidth to kind of follow all the groups that are coming together in different parts of the country. I'd certainly like to see Washington, for example, our neighbor up north, to create a 2-state block up there as a starting point. I think that there could be portability between, there's a lot of possibilities there. So that's how it looks. So I think, yeah, the next question of that next set of states that comes forward, and really, for us, it was a 5-year process, but we figured a lot out, and we networked a lot of, supportive folks that want to see this continue to spread. So that dialogue is certainly embraced and open.
You're actually reminding me, Tom, that I spoke to a state senator from Washington who just sort of wanted to pick my brain and have a little chat. So I think that makes sense. That is a good tree to bark up which to bark. Ladies and gentlemen, founder of Horizons, Kevin Baltic, would like to say a few words. And thank you very, very much, Tom Eckert and Angela Allbee, for speaking with us.